One of my favorite quotes is, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel only read one page." It's a great quote. I've always been very keen about seeing everything I can and experiencing everything in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this culture exists on this side of the world and I haven't seen it yet. I have to go experience that. So I really love bringing that to people, because it's like, oh, if you can't go there, I can take you there. I'll help you see how fascinating our world is.
Welcome to the Art to Heart podcast. My name is David Morin. I'm a former corporate sales guy turned poet. And this is where we explore how finding your voice can help your path and your purpose find you. Whether you're currently in a career transition or can't wait to be in one, we learn how leaning into creative expression can be the missing key to transforming your life and the life around you. Have you ever been afraid of going out and traveling around the world? Does leaving the comfort, safety, and the familiarity of home cause you anxiety to travel? Do you believe widespread media when it tells you that traveling anywhere outside of North America is automatically dangerous? Tanin Kayvan is someone who used to have major anxiety about her safety abroad, but ultimately had an insatiable thirst to explore the hidden, forgotten, and sometimes neglected parts of the world. I met Tanin during COVID in Alex Banayan's Zoom mentor sessions. He is the author of The Third Door, which is a life-changing book that helped me redefine what was possible for my life. Tanin was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and studied anthropology at the University of Victoria. A formal college education wasn't enough for her, though, so she took her learning into her own hands and traveled the world as a photojournalist to places like Peru, Mongolia, Iran, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, India, Turkey, and many more, where she could experience and capture moments of what other countries and cultures in the world are like. Her efforts helped her get published by UNESCO, and her work was exhibited at their headquarters in Paris. She has also recently had her work published on CNN and is now focusing her efforts on creating TikTok videos to bring a pocket of the beauty and magic of our world to your screen. In this episode, we talk about specific tools she used to reconcile with her anxiety so that she can live this life and explore it to the fullest. We also talk about the many ways that photography and poetry interlap and how the creative processes are so similar. We explore the link between creativity and spirituality and how these experiences might be influenced by the presence or absence of religion. Tanin also shares advice she received from Mike Posner about what it means to be an artist and expectations that artists need to release in order to embrace their unique talent and passion. We also share how some of the most unique experiences we've had on our travels hold a much bigger fingerprint in our lives than we expected. What's up, y'all? Today we are with Tanin Kayvan. Tanin and I met during COVID. Basically it was like a book club on steroids, I guess you could say. It was really cool because we just recently met in person for the first time after kind of knowing each other throughout all of COVID. And so I'm sure we'll talk about that. And without further ado, hello, Tanin.
Hi, David. Thank you for that intro. We did just meet in person, but honestly, it doesn't feel like that at all, because it just feels like I've known you for so long. And
pretty much.
Yeah.
And even the event was only 2 months ago, less than that, but it feels like it was years ago.
Yeah. It feels like it was a really long event, and it also feels like it was a long time ago. But really, it was just 2 days, 2 months ago, or less than 2 months ago.
Yeah. What were some of your takeaways from kind of meeting everyone there? All these like-minded people who just liked this one book and went there to just meet the author and all these other people who liked it.
It's honestly crazy how much finding the right people can have a positive impact on you. I really found my people through The Third Door and this group. and like to be around so many like-minded people that really are striving to be the best version of themselves. They put in the work and they are so heart-centered. That is such a powerful medicine, and it just like inspires me to be a better human, and it feeds me in all the best ways possible. And so that had a really big impact on me.
I agree. The air was like a lot lighter. You can just breathe easier, even among strangers. And for me, I was always someone very anxious to be around people, avoiding crowds. And that was really the first time I embraced crowds in such a long time. And yeah, still feeling the effects from it a little bit.
Yeah, like I don't really like crowds either, but like you go into this group of people and there's so much love. And it's so free of judgment. It's so like welcoming that you don't really feel anxious. Or maybe some people who are newer to the group, they come in and they feel a bit anxious at first, and then they get to know everyone and they see how open it really is. And it's just like this big family.
When you said that you met your people, because I have referenced it to that as well. What do you mean by that? Obviously, it's like the people you vibe with the most, but what does that mean in relation to like a lot of the people who have been in your life before that?
That's a really good question. I think that, throughout my life, and tell me if you can relate, I'm curious how it resonates with you, is I just didn't have I wasn't around people who were go-getters. Like I was around really interesting people. Like I don't want to say that they weren't cool people or
No,
just
not at
like,
all. Sorry if that was the impression that question gave.
No, it didn't at all. I'm just saying, just the way I'm wording this, I don't want it to rub anyone the wrong way. I'm very like, I would say I'm very growth orientated, and I really want to push my limits and pursue ideas that are really out of the box to the best of my ability. And I wasn't really around people who were doing that. Maybe there were people doing that, but I just didn't know them. So it was kind of like I didn't feel like that creative side of me was able to connect with others, and really learn from them and bounce ideas off each other and just express that side of me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So yeah, it was like your environment kind of reflecting you a little bit. You needed it's like you needed the environment change to be able to change the kind of questions you were asking.
Yeah. What about you?
Or am I losing it?
It was just finding an environment of people who were really, really determined to have a beyond average life. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go the traditional route. It's you go to school, you meet someone, you have kids, you get married. A lot of people do that. Even entrepreneurs do that. I'm not saying that that's like a boring or average thing to do, but there was nothing beyond that. There was nothing beyond.
That was it.
Yeah, it was like, you go to school, you get a job, and then that's it. That was just it. There was nothing else. And I finally met people who had all these ideas, and like, did they just want to have like a really, really cool life? And that was really cool.
The idea of crafting your life instead of a career, essentially.
Exactly.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was catching up with a friend who I hadn't talked to in a while. And we were, because he knew I didn't like the job that I was in. So he's like, what are you going to try to do then, And I was like, man, you know what? All I want is a job that that isn't hella toxic, that doesn't suck away my energy, and that gives me the money to live like the life I want. Like I'm tired of building a career. And I could just tell like the way that he received that was like, what's this fool talking about? You know what I mean?
And also, like, I read so many self-help books, or like so many. Yeah, I
What are you
love
reading right
them.
now?
So I'm reading 2 right now.
Which one?
I'm reading one called The Practicing Mind, and another one called Delivered from Distraction. I'm just by the titles, I'm guessing you can tell what they're about. It's about focusing your energy and being more disciplined, and they've made me more productive. So
There's
good
something
so far.
ironic about it being more focusing, but with 2 books. Do you always read more than 1 book at a time? I do too.
I'll
try have like
not
4
to.
books I'm working through, and then I just never finish them, and I'm trying to really change that.
No, yeah, it's funny you say that because it's probably not as productive to read 2 at the same time. And I try to make sure I finish one before going on to the other, but the other one was just like calling my name at the same time, and I was like, fine, I'll just read the first chapter.
That P word, that productive word, like maybe it doesn't have to be productive. It could just be a fun reading experience, reading 2 books.
Oh, I really like that. That takes off a lot of pressure. Just a fun reading experience. Who would have thought?
Well, I think what sucks the fun away of everything is putting productive into it.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Like why does every single thing have to be productive? And I think that's a lot to do with just essentially what our society is based off of, just working hard. I was thinking about it in the macro, like zooming out of just like the work culture. And it's like you get 52 weeks out of every year. And the company, each of our employers are like, you can get 4 weeks. The rest are ours, motherfucker. And that doesn't seem like a fair trade anymore. And so I feel like we've just been so duped.
Not
we've
to
been
mention
like
that,
so lied to and just inherited this like who benefits from this?
Totally. Not to mention, sorry I interrupted you there, but I was going to say, like, also, depending on how much you make, so much of it then goes to taxes. And then the more you make, the more you have to give away. And then you're just in this constant cycle of
and what I noticed, even when I started to make more money, is that I stopped evaluating my lifestyle. And so I had to keep making more for the sake of just mindlessly spending it all. And then it took me so long to put it together. It's like, I'm not just spending money. I'm spending my time for this. Like I just went on a shopping spree of like some stupid ass shit that I didn't even need. And it's like, how many days did I work to buy that? And
totally. I'm also
no,
finish what you're saying.
That was pretty much it. I was going to change the subject.
Well, I'm also reading a 3rd book. It's so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is like a really
classic,
popular, classic. But it's my first time reading it, so that's the only reason I brought up the whole like you keep working harder, and you keep having to give more money away.
If you don't mind me asking, like, what's your relationship with money right now? What was it like before the book, and how is it changing?
Well, it has me thinking a lot more about passive income. Well, some people argue that there's no such thing as passive income and that sort of thing. But I'm turning, I don't want to get too off topic from what we want to talk about in this podcast, but basically it's, I'm pursuing more ideas that are making me more money. Like I'm turning a couple suites in my house into Airbnbs, or it's actually my parents' house, but then I'm splitting the profit with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way I don't have to do much for a certain amount of money.
Yeah, that sounds like a really smart way of doing it. I did have some questions about your photography.
Okay. We can talk about photography. We can totally talk about photography now.
I am really curious. So first, I wanted to say congratulations because you had a photo and a story be featured on CNN.
Oh, thanks.
Recently. That was incredible.
Thank you.
And we can even talk about that story if you want to, but I wanted to kind of dive into your eye, like your photography eye.
Okay.
And just like what you look for when you take photos, like what inspires you to hit the shutter button.
Yeah. I feel like, so my sister is also a photographer. She was a fashion photographer, and growing up, I always observed her. And so I got to see her eye and her images. And fashion photography is like very aesthetic. So I think that humans have this, we're naturally drawn to things that are very aesthetic. It's just psychology, the way our brains work. And when I capture people and things, I like to capture them in a way that will capture people's attention, but also portray the person respectfully and accurately, you know, as who they really are, but in a way
Not
that
just
will
a
make
cool shot, but like a cool shot with integrity.
exactly. So I feel like that's kind of what draws me to take photos in a certain way.
That's fascinating. My brother let me use his camera recently for a couple of events I went to, and I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed taking pictures and just being really mindful and looking for those moments in people's faces and trying to like being very intentional about capturing the right one that does them justice, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And they say, I heard this photographer once say, the bigger the trash can, the better the photographer. So if you take a lot of photos and you end up not liking most of them, but there's like one or two of them you like, you only really get that one or two. So you might take hundreds of photos of someone and be like, oh, I don't think I really did them justice, but then you'll have that one photo that did.
That is so similar. I'm sure that's similar to every art, but for me specifically, I can see the relationship with poetry and just writing in general. Like you'll write trash poems like every day for a week, and then you just get all those bad poems out of you, and then the next one is just pure gold. And usually it takes all the crappy ones to get there.
And don't they say like you have to get rid of like your favorite line to come up with the really good one, the great one?
Yeah, how I perceive that is, I found that poems have like an energy of their own, and so poems borrow us. Poems borrow the writers. So it's like if the muse hits you and you have an idea and you don't take advantage of it, like it's gonna go to someone else. You know what I mean? And so, it's so I can tell I have gotten to know the difference when it's hard, but like when it's the poem trying to talk, because sometimes I'll get in the way of it and try to make it make sense the way I want to, or I'll think of a few rhymes and it's like, oh, I'll add those in there. And then those rhymes just stick out like a sore thumb when I read it. It's like, what the hell was I doing here? Like that was me. Like, get out of the way. And so, that's my experience with that.
How long do you find it usually takes you to write your poems? Or do you, for example, write something and then go back to it a few days later? Or
last year, when I first started writing last year, that was pretty much all of my process. I would just write one poem, and then I would just like obsess with that poem for a few days until I move on to the next one. But now I'm actually kind of worried, not worried, but I have a lot of work to do because this entire calendar year I've been writing poems like crazy, but I've barely edited any. And so now I have like this catalog of hundreds of ideas that I need to go flesh out. And but typically a full page poem for me will take about, I don't know, anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes. Usually
That's
pretty
awesome.
quickly. Sometimes it's like
quick,
really
yeah.
short. Usually like when I'm really in the zone, it'll take me 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's the editing. Well, it's like with, at least with writing, they say that the writing, the first draft is the quickest, and it's the editing. Most of writing is rewriting and editing.
Yeah.
I think it's like the times 3 of what it took to create it, maybe longer. I know everyone has their own formula, but
it's true.
does any of that resonate for you, like with your editing process for photos?
Oh yeah, it's like whether it's a photo or a video, it's like the editing. Not only because it's so technical does it take you so long, but because then the way you edit something, you control the rhythm and the tone of the story. At least in like video, for example. In photography as well, if you're like, depending on how you want to color grade something, you completely control the energy of that. But I feel like you could also apply that in some ways to writing.
Do you ever feel the same way as far as there's like an energy in the photo that you're getting in the way of? Or is it all like your vision that you're trying to perfect?
It's a do you mean in the editing process or in the whole process of making an image?
I guess just in general, but specifically the editing.
In general, it's a collaboration between me and whoever I'm photographing. So, I mean, it can't just be my vision. It's also, well, who is that person and how are they, showing up in a certain moment? And I always like to take a collaborative approach with people because I want them to have a say in their images.
Yeah.
But in the editing process, I find that I try to just keep it really natural and just very true to the energy of whatever I'm photographing. I actually don't edit my images a lot. I do very minimal touch-ups. I don't even really touch the color at all. So very minimal.
And when did you start, because you've started making videos recently, right? For like reels and stuff.
TikTok.
Like what? TikTok.
Yeah.
What kind of videos have you been making, and what inspired you to start making those?
I think it was kind of like, I just feel like I'm really passionate about storytelling. I think that there's one of my favorite quotes is the world is a book and those who do not travel only read one page.
Wow, that's spot on.
It's a great quote. And so it's also one of those like cheesy quotes that you would see on Tumblr, but I'm like, it's so
It's
true.
a good it is true for sure.
It is true. So I've always been very keen about like seeing everything I can and experiencing everything in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing or this person, this culture like exists on this side of the world and I haven't seen it yet. Like I have to go experience that. So I really love bringing that to people. 'Cause it's like, oh, if you can't go there, I can take you there. I'll help you see how fascinating our world is.
Your videos do a very good job of doing that.
Thank you.
You went to Panama recently? Is that one of the videos you made about in Panama?
I did. That was my first video. So I'm very new to the TikTok game. Very new.
What has putting those out and the process of creating them, what has that like added to your life?
I have been a lot more productive in every area of my life as a result, because I realize that content creation is something that I want to do so much that it brings me a significant amount of joy and happiness. And being so fueled by that, I've been able to channel that in everything I do in my day, even the things I don't want to do. Like it's managed to bring up my energy so much where I'm able to complete my tasks. I'm a lot more productive and like, 'cause I'm just so much happier. And so it's like trickled down and my creative energy is just like so much stronger than it was before. It's been really positive.
I can absolutely relate. On like the days when I would wake up early enough to make sure I get some writing time in before like the work day, my days would be night and day. Like I could take anything at work. And then the days I forget, I'm just so much more prone to being so angry or bitter for whatever happens that day.
Totally. And the mornings are I think the mornings are the best time to sit down to get done the things that I think creative things are best done in the morning. For me personally, I mean, totally depends on what works with each individual. But for me, it's like when I wake up in the morning and I'm getting into my creative work after my morning routine or whatever, it's like that's when I'm most focused, and then it charges me up for the rest of my day.
What kind of other things do you do for your creativity?
I think just taking care of myself. Like, you have to, like, honestly, just like drinking water. Like, being hydrated will not only make you happier and healthier, but you'll be more creative. If you're dehydrated, you can't focus as well.
From a place of scarcity. Like
Exactly. You need hydration, or just like going to the gym, getting my circulation going or whatever. That helps a lot in my creativity. It gives me more energy. So
would you consider yourself to have always been a creative person? Like even during school and stuff, or were you always like an outcast? Not outcast, but like you just kind of rebelled against school.
I've always been very creative, but not in school. And I also didn't really get a chance to express most of my creativity throughout my life because I was in school, whether it was elementary school, high school, university. Like my most authentic self was just constantly suppressed because I was in an environment that wasn't serving me. School just never worked for me.
What would your expression have looked like if you didn't have like school reining it in?
I mean, I just want to make it very clear. Like, I think I think you should go to school. I'm not telling people not to go to school or that, I'm not saying that I wish that I never went to school. I'm definitely not saying that because, I mean, otherwise I wouldn't know about parallelograms and how relevant that, like, no, but,
quadratic formula.
Yeah. So I'm not saying people shouldn't be in school, but what I am saying is it just had a very bad impact on my life. And I think if I had outlets that were more hands-on throughout my childhood as I was going through school, or if I had more experiences where I was learning through hands-on experiences, that's just the best way I learn. I would argue that it's the way that all of us learn better, but we're just kind of forced to sit behind a desk for hours a day. And I don't know how that does not work for me personally.
In the moment during that experience, did you have a sense of feeling deprived from something in school, or did it just something just not feel right?
I was never happy. I was depressed. I was anxious. So yeah, I felt all of those things.
What
about you? I want to before you ask your next question, how did you feel in school?
I was always very social. So as long as I had people around me, I was chilling. I was always very extroverted. My parents always told me that when I was born, when I was a little kid, I would be screaming if like no one was in front of me to play with. And so growing up, that was always me. And so I was always like in clubs. I was social. I was like, I think in high school, I was like in the top 10 for Homecoming King.
Sweet.
I think I was like most spirited or some shit.
So
I was social.
Homecoming King.
I was social, but I never had a lot of confidence. And but I was also a Jesus freak. I was like very religious.
Really?
I was the Bible study guy. I was like, but I wasn't the in your face Bible study guy. I was just the dude like, hey, let's go to worship. Let's sing some songs. And
Are you so? I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. I was a definitely major Jesus freak.
So are you Christian?
No, not anymore.
Or you were, and now you're not.
I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, that's like a whole other thing I have to ask you about later.
You can ask me now if you want.
Yeah. So you were Christian and now you're not anymore.
No, I think I left the church in college. I don't know. It's probably been like
Whoa.
over 10 years now since
What?
yeah.
So that's it. So I have nothing against people being religious. But I'm curious what made you leave the church?
Um, I grew up in a very small town.
Hmm.
Donald Trump came for a fundraiser in my hometown. And so it was very conservative, and also growing up in a Christian church, even more conservative.
Mm.
And then my parents also put some effort to like shelter us from the world,
Mm.
so I grew up very sheltered. And I went to a very liberal school. And
Mhm.
one of the first things that made me reconsider is that like I met so many people like homosexuals, and I was like, why do they have to go to hell? Like they're chill. Like I was like, that's a cool dude. Like
Why?
what's wrong with him? Like why? I don't get it. And then,
Totally.
but I was also so into religion that I took a lot of religion classes.
Okay.
So I took a class on the New Testament. I took a class on like world religions, and it's funny because people in the church will always tell you like, be careful. You have to be strong in your faith before you learn all that stuff. I was like, I'm good. And then, yeah, my mind was just opened more and more. And I saw like how the New Testament was made, how it was like how the Bible came together, just a bunch of like priests, just like, oh, we want that one, we want this one. All these can be the Bible now. But what also drove me away is in high school, because my church was really boring. It was a bunch of old people. And that's not super disrespectful,
You
but
don't think old people are fun,
not when you're a
David?
kid. But
Not when you're a kid.
what I forgot to mention is that I helped start a new church in high school. So there was like a group of four or five of us who were just starting these Bible studies. And I got so much value out of the Bible studies because it was with other people my age. And like the pastor was a lot younger. And so I was getting sucked in. And we helped grow that to like, hey, let's come to Bible study. Let's come to Bible study. And then like we were too big for a house. So we had to get another house and go to a backyard. And then by the time I left for college, I think they were getting close to renting a building out. And so I was really sad to leave that behind. And so when I go back to school, I didn't have my church anymore. I was really conflicted between the church I grew up in and this other completely way that my church viewed as radical. You know what I mean? And
Interesting.
but I found a home-based church where I went to school at in Stockton, and they pretty much put the nail in the coffin and scared me away because they're like, we've been waiting for a college student to come so they can run these ministries on campus, and this is your purpose, this is your calling. And I was like,
Oh no.
I'm just here for potluck, dude. Like, I'm just I'm just
I
here for
love
some
potluck.
community, right? And so they scared me away, and after that, I started drinking and smoking, and then that was all downhill from there.
I'm just here for potluck.
What?
I'm just here for potluck.
Yeah. It
I
was
think you
really good food.
needed, I think that would be a really great shirt.
I'm just here for the potluck. We'll see. But yeah, and then, and I think slowly I've just kind of gotten I consider myself more spiritual than ever now. Even more so when I was religious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that's my life, that's my story. Leaving
Your
the church.
entire life leaving.
I guess it's not really funny, but so someone from my church who I grew up with, he was like a grandpa figure. He's actually, he's getting put in hospice right now. And me and my sister went to go visit him yesterday. And it was just so nice to be able to see him again. And like, he was actually up and he had energy. And he looks at me and he's like, do you still have faith? And so I'm just looking at him. I'm not going to lie to him. But I believe in prayer. And so I was like, I'll pray for you. And he's like, okay. But so I think I found a way to to like make people happy with that.
I think God is experienced by many outside of religion.
Mm.
I think I mean, I don't want to say that every religious person speaks this way. I mean, I have friends who are religious, and they're not the kind of people who like shove it in your face. They're very, yeah, they're very chill. But I feel like, God or the universe or whatever you want to call it can be experienced in no matter, what religion or religion you don't believe in.
I completely agree. What are ways you've experienced God outside of organized religion?
Yeah, I mean, to me,
Did
it's
you grow up
about
religious? Sorry, just a quick side. Did you grow up
no,
religious? No. Okay.
no. So my parents, they immigrated from Iran, which is a Muslim country. My mom was religious when I was a kid, but I was born and raised in Canada, and then eventually she let that go. And so no, I was not born religious. My family's kind of always been pretty spiritual, I would say. But yeah, so I always just refer to the universe. When I'm speaking with religious people, I just call it God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like all we have at the end of the day is our connection with that divine part of ourselves and the universe. And it's just really life is about being present enough to communicate with that part of ourselves and like our higher self and be in the receiving mode to express whatever extension of the universe we are.
So that's how you experience God or the universe.
We're just, we're just meat suits experiencing life.
No, if anything, if I have a religion now, it's probably poetry in my experience with that art and the way what really blew my mind is that when I started going over all of like the poems that I wrote early on, I noticed that so many of them were trying to teach me something in that moment. I just couldn't see it. And so like they were lessons I still learned, but when I go back and read the poems, I could see them like actively trying to teach me.
Do you feel though how those poems come from your higher self and then communicate back to you?
Some of them, many of them. Yeah. It's I have felt like the tug of war in my head while writing it. Sometimes it's like, I'll just check, wait, is that me or you? Okay.
Is that you?
Yeah. It's like it's become a very active process for me. And that has exploded into like every other parts of my life. And that has been a really cool aspect of it because like for a while, like I started thinking in poems, so it's like, I conditioned my mind to constantly think like, wait, is this you or is this me? Like, is this my thought or is this a divine thought?
Like,
and
are you receiving the thought or thinking the thought?
Yes, exactly. And so, and it's just become a really cool thinking exercise. And so now when I'm out in the world, like that's kind of how I view it. It's like, wait, am I seeing my projection or is this just like you and your glory right now? You know what I mean? And so it's just, it's an exhausting seesaw, but it's just how I look at the world now.
I like that. You think in poems.
I've been writing my work emails in poems for like a year now. I can't stop. I have to go and erase all these line breaks. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
That's so funny. I think that's great. True poet.
Yeah, I think I would accept that compliment.
You should.
Because I think it's more of it's definitely, I've learned it's more of, it's a way of life. Like poets can write, but it's also the way, like I said, it's the way you do look at the world. If you're always looking for, I don't necessarily always look for the beauty. I just always look for the other side of the coin in everything I see. I try to see it as it is and think of what it would be like without it, as opposed to attaching meaning to it. Probably not making sense at all. You following?
I'm following. I'm following part of it.
Yeah. it's hard.
And not attached, seeing things as they are without assigning meaning to it. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. So I guess this is probably a really bad idea, but it's the only idea that's coming to my mind is like, just looking at a light. I was like pondering on a candle before, and I was just thinking of like, wait, why do we always have to have a candle lit? Why are we always so afraid of the darkness? Like, what if? But it's because we attach our fear to the darkness. The darkness is just darkness. It's just the absence of light.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example of something I would meditate on. Like, it's just a light, and then it's just no light. Why does one have to be so bad and the other great,
Totally.
Because I think we have, because of our fear of darkness, we don't allow ourselves the power of experiencing darkness and like sitting in your darkness and greeting your darkness. And I think that took it a lot deeper, but
yeah. I mean, I think trying to push away your quote unquote darkness always makes it cling to you harder.
Mm-hmm.
Because our emotions are like children. The more you try to get them off of you, the tighter that they'll hold on. And so we actually need to nourish our fears and our emotions and our darkness with love in the same way that we would our children. And then as soon as you do that, that's when they loosen their grip.
That's so true, though.
And you can't do it for the sake of, you can't be like, okay, I'll love you just so you release your grip. Like it has to be real.
Yeah, there's this concept, I think it's Wu Wei, or just like a fine line of Zen of allowing it but not forcing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think it's when you reach a point like that where it can kind of, like you said, it won't cling to you anymore. And I think it's just creating a space for yourself. What are ways that you nourish that part for yourself?
Yeah. Well, fun fact, so sometimes I still struggle with anxiety, but I would say it's reduced about 90% of it by 90%.
What were your anxiety triggers, and what was it like living with anxiety?
So when I was 18, so this is a few years ago, when I was 18, I had severe anxiety. I was like scared of traveling. And this is before I really started traveling. I was just in I don't know why, I was just in a big space of fear. I was scared of the world. I always felt like bad things would happen to me.
Why do you think that is? Like where?
The media.
The media?
And I'm
Canadian
in photojournalism.
Media?
No, it's all, no, I just mean like, it's all over the place, right? Like we're constantly, and not just like the media, heck, I'm in photojournalism, but, but we're constantly given reasons to fear the world, whether it be our parents or people around us who are always, trying to prevent worst case scenarios, or be careful of this is this bad thing that's happening. Did you hear about, the 3 girls who went to Barcelona and like had a horrible time? Like we never focus on.
Did you hear about like the 20,000 that went and came back fine? Like,
yeah, you don't hear about, people, all the people who had a great day. If every day you had to sit and scroll through stories of every person who had a great day, I can assure you it would outweigh the people who had a bad day. There's more people not being murdered and kidnapped a day than the people who are. Not to dismiss those events, obviously, but my whole point of saying this is that, I was in fear of life, of myself, of everything, and my anxiety was just so bad. And learning how to regulate my nervous system and and I always wanted to travel the world. So I was like, how am I going to travel the world and go to, all these places that I want to go to, and with all this fear? And I really had to like reprogram my brain to be able to do that.
How did you do that? So what was it like to get you from point A of wanting to travel but too anxious to travel to getting on the plane and flying out?
Also, like flying is still one of my biggest fears.
Really?
Like turbulent planes. It's not just flying, but like turbulent planes. I'm getting a lot better now in the last couple trips I've been on. It's getting a lot better. But I'm not religious until I'm on a turbulent plane ride.
I hear
I'm
you.
like, as soon as the turbulence hits, I'm like, God has a plan.
Really? I'm the opposite. As soon as something happens, I do go to worst case scenario in my head. I'm like, we're dying. This is it. And so I just try to get myself to accept it so that I can just try to find something to enjoy if that's the case. Like if I'm going to die right now, then what do I got? Like what song can I listen to 30 seconds of?
You know what always happens to me? I'll like listen to anytime there's turbulence on a plane and I'm listening to my music. I just like put it on shuffle so I distract myself. And then there's always these songs coming down, like Way Down We Go, or like these songs would come on. These songs would come on. I'm like, no, it's happening. So my anxiety would like flare up, right? But anyways, how did I move to, for example, being able to travel the world and go off the beaten path and all these things with no fear now?
And where was the first place you went?
So the first country I traveled to on my own was Japan. And Japan is a very safe country. I'm convinced that it's the likelihood of something happening to you in Japan is very low, like something bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree from my experience there.
Bad things can happen anywhere, but Japan is a very safe country. So I think starting with anything, whether it's travel or any other fear you have, it's exposing yourself in a way where you still feel comfortable and not too far out of your comfort zone and making your way up from there. I think that will really help. And also, this is a really big thing people don't talk about. And I think they even did a study on this. And this is exactly what I was doing when I was trying to overcome my anxiety is I had the belief that every step I take, I will feel better and I would feel less anxious. So I was like, after my trip to Japan, I'm going to be less anxious about going to another place. I really had that belief. And then I would go to another place and I would feel better. And then I would go to another place and I'd feel better. And now I feel like I could literally go anywhere in the world and nothing would happen to me.
Wow. So it's like a mini visualization practice. You just
in a way, yeah.
Yourself. And I interrupted you from finishing that question. Like what did you do? What did you introduce to your life to help you get into the plane?
It was just you mean the turbulent? So basically the fear,
for your anxiety. What did you do for your anxiety?
Well, it was just by starting off and going to an easier country. As for the plane rides, I would just stick them out.
Well, yeah, you can't really do anything else.
I would just stick the plane rides out and, try to not think too much. I would always just look at the flight attendants. I'm like, I'll see if they're freaking out or not.
Do really long flights freak you out? Is that like something you would not do, like a 10+ hour flight?
No, I do those flights, but it's just a matter of like.
Oh yeah, you went to Japan, duh.
I went.
Wow, yeah, that was the very first flight then. So you went all out for your very first flight, all like 18 hours?
Yeah, I had been on planes before. Mm-hmm. Like that wasn't my first flight, but it was just the fear of travel in general. Like what if someone hurts me or something? But yeah, that's it. Plane rides, I just have to deal with.
What do you look for in your destinations? Because it seems like you have chosen you have been very intentional about the places you go to that are typically off the beaten path.
Yeah. I like going places that most people don't visit or most people don't get a chance to see. Mm. So I think that's a big thing that motivates me because I feel like there's so much that isn't shown in certain places that would be of great benefit for the world and for people to know about. and to appreciate, most importantly. So I like to go places where it's like, I'm just naturally drawn to those places. I love, like, I want to go to that little town that no one's heard of or that no one would ever visit, or even the people in the country have never heard of it. It's like, why would you go there? It's like, I feel like there are things there that need to be discovered. And
What do you do to find those places? Because that's one of I love traveling, but I hate doing the research. And so it's like I really need to find a travel buddy who knows how to do all that, because I've noticed that I've robbed myself of a lot of good experiences by not doing research, by being next to this really awesome thing I could be doing that I just never knew about. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I don't really research as much as I probably should. Depending on where I'm going, I may or may not do more research. I just go there and meet people and talk to them, and they become, they kind of guide me in the right direction. They guide me to the places that I might not be able to read about on Google, So, and then, they introduce me to people and places, and they share their culture or their home with me. And then I get to learn about it that way.
What's been one of your highest highs throughout your traveling, and what's been like the lowest low? You can share either one or both.
I think one of my highest highs, I was visiting this community in Peru, and they live in the high altitude jungle of Peru. So to get there, you actually have to pass the highest point in the Andes on a bus. And then you go to this town called Oxapampa. And then they're called the Yanisha. They live in the highlands outside of Oxapampa. And I had an amazing time there. And one of the reasons it was so memorable was because, so the people who live there they're actually Christian because of missionaries.
Colonialism. Thank you, colonialism.
Yes, colonialism. So they, but they were also very invested in their culture. So there were no tourists, nothing. And it was just, this man, his name's Eduardo, and he was kind of like one of the elders, and I was staying with his family.
Wow.
And he would host events at his home like every week where they would practice dance and storytelling in their culture. And they would dress up, not because of me, but because they would just do that on their own, and they would celebrate, storytelling and dance in their culture. And they would dedicate themselves to that every week. And it was just because it brought them so much joy. And so I really loved being there because it was very authentic, and because they were just such good people, very welcoming. There's giant spiders by my bed every night, and these like rats that would keep me up at night. So I like brought one of the street cats in my room at night, so these rats would go away. But that was one of my favorite places I've ever been to, and like the fireflies would light up the night. And there was all these like avocados that were free because they were just like falling off the trees, and there's like more avocados than what anyone knows to do with.
Yeah.
And this other man took me to his garden with all these wild orchids that he had found in the jungle. So it was a very, very interesting place. And that was definitely a highlight.
Just a full ass dose of life.
It was so beautiful. It's really an energetic thing. It's not about where you go or how wild it is or whatever. It's an energy, and it's like, what is the energy that is present there?
That's funny because I was just thinking about an experience I had the other day when I was in the Peace Corps. There was this, I was in East Timor in Southeast Asia, and there was a ceremony that they were doing in the community I was living in. And I think it was around All Souls Day or All Saints Day, but basically there was a healer they would go to ask for any kind of mental or emotional or physical healing. And to receive the healing, you had to sacrifice. Usually, most people brought a chicken. And I remember like standing in line with these people waiting to go. I didn't have a chicken, but I was just there experiencing it with them. And in the moment, I think I had a lot of empathy for the chickens because like they all knew they were about to die, and you just hear them freaking out. But it was really the ceremony and like the sanctity of it was really beautiful, and because they had like they would get the blood of the chicken, and then the healer would like put it in his mouth and then spit it back out to like as part of the healing process. And in the moment it was very strange and foreign to me, but in retrospect I would have never guessed that would have been one of the more impactful moments for me.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. and that's so something that was just on my mind recently.
But what did you feel like you took away from that?
I tried really hard to remove my meaning and my empathy for the chickens to be like, no, this is something like, I think I had that empathy thing just from being in America, and there's a lot more conscious people of like advocating otherwise, and you put a lot of guilt in your mind and whatnot. But that was an example of me like removing my meaning from it. Like, this is something they've done for a very long time, and like they continue to do it for a reason. And so if anything, that's all Peace Corps was to me. It was not reducing it to that, but as a whole, that was a constant battle with myself of like, what am I bringing to view this? Like, what lens am I bringing to view this in? And what is it really like? I constantly had to check America at the door.
So you felt guilty about eating meat? Is that what it was?
No.
Like, that's like
no, it was more of, you know what? I think it was the fact of witnessing it.
Yeah.
In America, we are so far removed from seeing all of our animals slaughtered. And so
yeah.
It was the fact of like being right next to this chicken and hearing it whimper before it knew it was about to die, and hearing the crack and seeing the blood. And so maybe that was why that moment was so important, because it was a way of
reality.
It was reality for sure, for sure. But they had also eaten dogs there, and so that was something that's
hard.
That was really hard for me. But they eat dogs because during the Indonesian occupation, sometimes that was all there was to eat, and so now it's viewed as a delicacy. And so I had to walk away because there was like, I mean, I won't get into it, but there was. It's like I'm there next to it, and I'm like, "What's he doing there?" It's like, it's for later, like it's dinner later, hard. And I'm like, "No, not for me."
Yeah, when we go into another space or culture, it's so important that we have to like remove that part of ourselves that might judge certain things. Because it's like you're just visiting, right? You're not, you can't have a say in it, right? Because it would be considered rude, or it's just not really respectful. That's hard.
Yeah. And I think one of the big takeaways I had in general over that experience is just there's no such thing as common sense. Because common sense, everyone says, it's common sense to us. It's common sense to where we live in our culture and our experience. But this is not common sense around the world.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you just made. It's just, it really varies. Like, you can't say, this is common sense, because it's not really common.
Yeah. What are some adventures that you're looking forward to? What are you visualizing next for yourself?
I think the biggest adventure that I'm visualizing right now is internal.
The best.
I I mean, do I have trips planned? Somewhat, maybe. Like I'm always kind of wanting to keep planning trips, but I feel like a part of me is just kind of like there's more to explore inside, and I just got into content creation. So I'm learning more about my authentic expression and how I can be of most value and service to the world, and seeing what comes most naturally to me, what I'm good at. That's the adventure I'm on right now, and it's what I'm looking forward to the most. I I have like my last video that one of my last videos that I posted on TikTok. It's the one that I asked you for feedback on. That one
Oh, that was
actually,
such a beautiful video.
so that actually started taking off a bit on TikTok, and it was my first video that did gain some traction. And since posting that, I have been getting messages almost daily from people.
Like asking where it is, just asking you about it. What are they saying?
Just people being like, "Oh, like, you know, your content gives me like a sense of exploration for a few minutes in my day. Thank you so much." Or just, you know, really sweet messages. And
That's so cool.
And but what's also is like I don't want to be inspirational. Like I feel like that's a trap that people fall into, and it's a trap that I have fallen into. It's like, you know, you're doing something and it's like, oh, like you want to inspire people. It's like, actually, like, I don't want to inspire people. Like if my work inspires people, that's great. But my only job is to keep creating and to like be present with my creations. And if that inspires someone, then that is a huge gift. And I am so happy about that.
I really love that you said you're making it for you. And if it inspires people, that's cool. And not a lot of people. I think a lot of people share that, but it's not as popular as, at least in my opinion. But yeah, what do you see for that relationship? Like where, with you and your creativity and with content creation, like for me, I guess I can like, I hope to see a book or something out of what I'm going to be creating. And I know it's not content creating, and I'm not saying you have to define anything. I'm just curious of like where if you could see it take you somewhere, where would that be?
You know, it's interesting because on one hand, I'm saying I want to be of service to people. And then on another hand, I'm also saying, but I'm not here to inspire anyone. You know? So in a way, it's like I'm doing this for myself, but I'm also doing it to be of service. But I see, like, I would love to take people around the world, like in person. Just like that would be so fun to take people to places that maybe they don't feel comfortable going to on their own, and they want to see something that's different from what they've seen. I would love to take people on that journey.
Like hosting your own retreats.
Yeah.
Organizing them.
Yeah, my own tours or retreats, and we dive deep emotionally, but also go on adventures. I think that would be really fun. I'm also working on a book. That's taking time though. And then, yeah, and then I just want to keep creating content right now and just seeing where it takes me. I really want to do more public speaking. But yeah, it's in the early stages. So
can I ask you more about your book?
You can.
I just want to know what it's about, and yeah, just what the book is about, and what led that on for you to start it.
So all I can say about it right now is that it's a kid's book. That's all I'm going to say.
Awesome.
I think there's so much that isn't shown to kids or communicated to kids. And so I have this book idea that I think is going to be different from any book a kid has seen on their bedside table.
If it's anything like a life you've lived, I believe it.
Oh, cool. I'll send one to you too. Don't worry.
Of course. And I think that's very important because, you know, I think sometimes we're too focused on like trying to influence our peers or inspire our peers to make different changes. But it's like, at this point, we're all going to do our own thing no matter what. But yeah, why not just go to the younger generation and try to show them early on of different ways to think? So I commend you for doing that. So you had mentioned something about kind of finding that medium between creating something and being of service. Is that what you had said? I don't want to ruin your word before I give an example.
No, yeah, it was about, doing something from a space of wanting to be of service, but also not doing things to be inspirational or doing them.
So for you, where does like wanting the desire for validation, like where is that in that equation? Is there any of that?
Well, I mean, wanting validation is like the most natural human thing ever.
The reason I ask is because what came to mind is like my own experience when I share poems online on Instagram. I don't share some all the time, but I have a few poet friends. We have a thread, and obviously I'm speaking from my own insecurity because I would think sometimes that it's like, oh, like I don't want to just be like another Insta poet who's just trying to like go and collect likes and get shares and whatever, Like I'm not just trying to be a shareable meme. But when people share you, it's like, fuck, that was fucking incredible. Like, And so it's like, yeah, I don't want to do things to move people or inspire people, but you know what? No, I guess my motivation's completely different because with poetry, it is something for me, but I actually think one of my motivations to write it is to help people.
On our call with Alex in the mentor sessions, he brought on Mike Posner for us to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I actually asked Mike a question about this. I was like, how do you deal with, seeking things or a certain response outside of you versus, balancing out your own personal desire to create.
What was his answer?
Well, I was really referring to validation. He was saying that your job as an artist is to create. That's all your job is. We want our art to impact the world, but we're not creating for a specific result or response. We're creating because that's simply what we do. Mm-hmm. Of course, we want it to reach people, but we're not doing it for the purpose of what others want. We're doing it because it's naturally who we are.
I think that is like a very true, genuine artist way of looking at things because all you can do is create it. And then after that, it takes on a life of its own to do whatever it needs to do from there.
And I think a lot of like artists who reach a certain point in their lives or like become, quote unquote successful know this. He was like, yeah, I was just talking to Big Sean about this. Like, this is, what we all struggle with sometimes. And it's just kind of like reminding yourself that you're an artist whose job is to just create.
Well, I imagine that when they get successful and make so much money off of it, right. Like, I can't imagine how their relationship is challenged with their creativity.
Yeah. And you don't want to do things being like, oh, well, this is, if I do this, people might like it and then I might make money. And that never works. I feel like you don't make money that way.
No, it's by being bold and just going out with, just doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Creating whatever wants to be created. Mm-hmm. What was he your favorite session that Alex had? Because I know he brought a lot of different guests on. And that's funny, we opened with that and just never talked about it.
Yeah. I think I had a couple favorites. Like I loved, obviously Mike Posner's session was really cool. But also I loved Atusa and Rich. Were you there for those
I don't think I saw either of those. Who was Rich?
So Rich is a lawyer who used to be like a heroin addict.
Oh, wow. No, I was not there.
And his story was insane. Like he dropped out of school and became a heroin addict and had all of these things happen in his life. And I don't remember all the details, But basically, from where he started to where he is now, he's like literally reforming parts of the justice system, and he's changing lives and bringing hope to people who were in a really dark space. And so his entire story is amazing, and he's not online, which sucks because his story is amazing. But yeah, Rich was one of my favorites.
I think my favorite session, I don't remember if I had a favorite one with a guest. I remember that at the time NQ was one of his guests.
Yeah.
And at the time I didn't really know who he was. I was just like, oh, that sounds cool. And I wish it was just really funny because that was still before I wrote. So that was like in 2020, and I didn't start writing until like the next summer in 2021. But I think without having known that NQ was the guest speaker one of those days, I would have never stopped on watching his special on Amazon Prime when I was just browsing one day. I was like, oh, he was the dude in that session, and I watched it, and then like it changed my life.
That's so cool.
Something about his poetry just really woke me up. And looking back now, I don't think it was as much as, I think it was the poetry, but I think it was more what one of his poems were talking about. And it was just like it was just something like spiritual that like really resonated with me and felt very true. It was like a truth I just have been deprived of my whole life. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah. But kudos to Third Door for making this happen, letting us meet. I think that's a good place to end it.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun. And where can people find you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram, and my website.
What's your website?
My website is Tanin Kayvan I was about to give you all my email.
TaninKayvan@.com.
@.com. My website is taninkayvan.com, and then on there you'll find the links to my social media.
I will sign up when you start those retreats.
Thank you.
A lot of people would be excited in that.
Oh my gosh,
so much fun.
Yes, I'm so excited. And when you start your poetry retreats, I'll sign up. Sooner or later.
Yeah, I gotta get on that. But thank you so much for coming on. This has been great, and have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Art to Heart podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or review. You can tag me on social media, send me a DM, or even leave me a voicemail at www.art2heart.life. Let me know how you're liking these conversations. If you have feedback, tips, constructive criticism, I'm all ears. This is a labor of love, and I'm still figuring my way out around this medium. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.